Hi, everybody. So I want to introduce you again to Frank. And Frank is a musician, and he's got a lot of pertinent music that pertains to now, but also it's pretty timeless. So it pertains to a lot of the things that have gone on in the past. We're going to talk about music and frequency. Remember that art and frequency creates art, but art is one of the things that's going to shine in the future. So remember that. And think about how you'd want to present your own kind of beautiful frequency in whatever way that inspires you as well, because we're going into a time where small business, inspiration, all of that stuff is going to matter. And we're going to be moving forward in a much more fun kind of creationary society. So, how are you, Frank?
I'm doing well and well said, I must say. It's funny
Thank you.
because you talk about the small business, and I thought of a locksmith or a blacksmith and the old time businesses that were flourishing at
Mm-hmm.
times when people had a trade and they did the trade. And what you spurred my memory as a precursor and a foreshadow for part of this conversation. I was thinking of the role that artificial intelligence, because this is huge, right? And I think in my particular instance, with the fact that without giving it away, artificial intelligence plays some role in what I do and how I let it play, but how much of it out there is pervasive and how much are they selling you on everything under the sun that you can possibly use to
Mm-hmm.
create music, to create pictures and so forth. So I'd like to touch a little bit about that when we go through. But I would like to say a little bit about, where I came from. And I'm just a guy from up in the middle part of New York State. I'm not, they call it Upper New York because New York is considered Lower New York. Albany is to me Upper New York, but we're in a town in the middle of the two. Um, that was a place that I grew up. I was born at a local hospital. I grew up in a family that was, I would say, relatively modest, and I had a father. I have a father, actually. He's 92 years old, who is a brilliant person who makes and used to fabricate a lot of different mechanical motors and um, ideas for bikes. We used to race motocross. My brother was a champion in New York State when he raced go karts back in the day. He went to the World's Fair in 1964, and he won there, and then subsequently was a champion in New York State. And then I raced motocross, and during these periods of times, one of the reasons that we were as good as we were is my father, kind of lived vicariously through us the way I would see it, right? He couldn't ride the bike. He had his own stock car days before that. He did his own thing and he was successful at that. This is all not at the level of professional, but these are all things that made us very happy. I got caught in a situation where at one point I'm thinking, girls and music were coming into my life in at 14, 15 years old, right? So I we had a band, and we also had this motocross thing. My cousin and I also raced motocross together, and he was already moving on to the music, and I liked the idea of music and being involved in the music. And we had started writing songs early on, 14, 15 years old, and it was attracting both crowds of people, and the young ladies around the neighborhood were coming over, and it was cool. So it was that typical teenage part in my life, and instead of following the path of the motocross, that was a seriously strenuous. I got up to expert class. I started running there, and I just said, you know what, I got to kind of make a choice, and I made the choice to go into music, and so I spent some time practicing, and I think I should have. I always look back on my life and I said I probably could have practiced more in the level of expertise and professionalism when it comes to the craft of the actual instrument itself. I play the guitar, I sing, and I think my vocal prowess is better than my guitar playing prowess. And I'm not trying to take anything away from myself, but and you know, I'll give a hand at it today. And but the point I'm getting at is there there was a point where I realized that of all of the things that I do, I I can hear the melodies in songs that seem to make people happy. And I was you know, I'm starting to turn people's heads with my own music, which didn't happen until later on. I had a couple of tunes that I wrote when I was younger, and then I got married, and then I got divorced, and then I got married again. And then during that second marriage, I started recording some of the music, a couple of songs, only a couple of songs. And I had a little bit of a self-esteem issue. And I really, a couple people said the song was great. It's got hit material. And then there were some people who were closer to me who kind of, you know, poo-pooed it and yeah, it's all right, you know. And I think I fell into the trap before I
Yeah.
had become anywhere close to aware. I got caught up in this trap. The first song that I wrote was a song called Where I've Been. This is a song that is one of the first ones outside of some of the ones earlier, but the song, the song goes right along with, this is one of the songs that I had presented to a couple people, and it could be you, it could be me, it could be one of life's little mysteries, trying hard to carry on, but just then the baggage you got weighted down, and west wind blowing now, change is coming round. Rest your weary head, 'cause I don't know, don't know, don't know, I don't know where I've been. And the second verse goes like this. It's hard to go against the grain, glaring judgment pins you to insane. But deep inside you're feeling right. The mask upon the outside keep from letting in the light. And west wind blowing now, change is coming round. Rest your aching head, 'cause I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know where I've been. Don't know, don't know, don't know where I've been. And then so that's a piece of that. And from that, I started playing it for some younger kids that worked for me at one point, and they started taking a liking to it and asked me to play it again. So then I kind of felt, well, you know, I mean, if somebody's actually interested in the music, I'm going to explore it a little bit further. And I got a little bit of confidence under my belt. And then a woman, you know who it is. It's Monica. And Monica came along, and we became friends. And she had a coffee shop with her significant other. And she said, why don't you come in and you can play here and collect tips, and
Mm.
and that was the beginning of the next stage. That's a long time from when I originally started up until um, the next wave, which was, that's about 12 years ago, 13 years ago now. So there was this huge void in between. Then I wrote, and I did a lot of kicking around, and I worked, you know, I had a day job, and that's, you know, in that middle portion of my life, I was also searching to find myself. And from the very beginning, the music had a tendency to be spiritually pervasive, at least from the perspective of your own psyche and trying to find yourself. And that's this the final verse in that song goes, I weathered the storm, now I'm not of the norm. A million miles from conventional, I was reborn. I gave it all to find the truth. I broke the mold where lies were held to keep me from my youth. I searched inside the hidden child. I searched inside the hidden child. I know it's not your fault, so step into the light. So all of that, which, you know, I hadn't even seen, heard, and talked about Don Miguel. I knew nothing about any of like the big masters except for Jesus. I mean, I went to oh, that's something that I did. I went um, to school at Catholic school for 12 years through high
Mhm.
school, up through the following of high school. So I listened to the great master's words from the perspective of the Catholic religion, which, you know, I mean, I have a tendency to believe that the book has been, can I say, altered?
Manipulated. Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
for the flavor of the day. I believe that there are some of the words which you can't really change, but I think some of the set of circumstances that occurred, I think, have been altered to make it um, a lot easier to control people.
Mhm.
Just my thought. And I think that's where, you know, I go to church with my dad because he's an older guy and he likes the company and I like to be there. And I don't mind listening to the word, but I know that the prayers, you know, oh my God, I am heartily sorry for having offended thee. And I think about that whole perspective. And I don't get a warm fuzzy feeling as far as
Mhm.
the there's a couple of prayers. I mean, I love the Our Father, but then I found out that the Our Father was a lot more spiritually grounded than it was um, maternally grounded, patriarchal,
Yeah.
patriarchal, and Our Father, as if you're talking directly, but he talking to the Spirit, and then the translation was also not given fair due, where it's now he's talking to uh, the Spirit saying, "Oh, great Father, Creator," which is completely different than, you know, tying him into the Son of God, which we all are. I think Christ's whole message was um, to to have us all reach the state of
Mhm.
frequency that allows us to operate in that light. And
Yep.
I think it's as simple as that. I don't think
Yeah.
it gets any and so then as people tried to control, they want to put shame in the process. And I think that
Mhm.
becomes a very, very dangerous and slippery slope. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
would you
happened
agree?
for, oh yeah, that's happened for so long. And it has to do with engaging the fear, you know? So even right now, like some people are engaged in fear and their nervous system is like totally wrapped up in their lowest chakra.
Right.
And some people are more aware and they're like, okay, let's go. We're excited. Everything's about to change. So it really just depends on who you are and what your perspective is and how much you've done for your internal, work. And
I
letting
agree.
go of fear is a big thing.
That's a part that I find has been my biggest challenge. And I think there's two sides to me. There's the side that has this knowing, right? I've come up with a saying called "knowing is beyond belief," and I put it on some coffee mugs. I haven't released them yet, right? But I'm sure it's been said at one time or another. But I went on the line and I didn't see anybody talking about it. So if it shows up after this, you know I coined the phrase. But the reality is, I say that with the utmost heartfelt thought process, but at the same time, sometimes because of this issue that had had been worthiness, there's a part of me that can't accept it for myself, right? I mean, I think that's the thing. People can say talk a good game. I see another fella out there who I like to listen to, um, and I see the people that follow him, and when they talk, oh, I can feel it, I can feel it, and I think a lot of people want to feel it. And I think that's a good thing. Fake it till you make it, I don't think is necessarily the most advantageous, but if it's all you got at that particular moment, it may be all you can muster up, and that's fine. But I think once you get to the point where you let go of the fear, as you're saying, right? You finally let go of the fear. There's a side of me which is fallen to pieces. That's another song which I've just completed. Put a little rap in the middle of this song. It's very, very solid. It's much more after the song I shared with you in the very beginning of our
Mm-hmm.
tenure here, Mercury, which is a much more dystopian look at life, and that's fine. And for what it is, it's a great. I love the tune myself. This one is much more funk, and it's in a major, so a major tune, a major chord versus a minor chord. I'm so sad. I'm so sad. Versus the major chord, which is yeah, la da 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 da. So this song is, and I wasn't going to break into this because I wanted to talk a little bit about this guy. He's got a lot of stuff to say, but I find it very crazy that any one person, if I was going to be a guru right now, I would have to say, I don't have all the answers. But while we're going along here, here's what I think. What I think is that we're in a position where we have a mission that has to lead us through to the promised land, right? And so just like any great mass exodus from one land and the trials and tribulations, I think that the third dimension is the piece of the puzzle that everybody always seems to miss. It's almost like when people talk about pain and how they want to get through an operation or a series of events without any pain. I want to try and not experience this experience before I actually experience it, which basically takes you out of the reality of what third dimension is. And now you just, in my estimation, you delay yourself. So if I'm the guru and I'm talking to people and I say, you know, I believe this. I believe wholeheartedly that this is the case. Now we might have a couple of variables in that whole process, but I can't be the one that says for sure that it all breaks down that way. I cannot. But I believe there's a good possibility that I'm going to get a number of people, and I'll probably get a large group of people to say, no, I kind of dig your vibe. I get where you're coming from. Tell me a little bit more. And then part of that whole thing is let's all experience this together. So when you come back and you tell me about something that happened to you, I just got ticked off because I was talking to my wife and that BI, you know what, just did X, Y, and Z. And, well, you know what? You got every darn right to be ticked off because it didn't go your way. And then the acknowledgement has to come first. And then there's got to be some kind of a reasoning that takes place. And then there's got to be, I think what I've learned in the very recent past, and I think this is the point of self-actualization. It's the one where you get to, and this goes back to falling to pieces. You get to the point where you've gotten to the bottom. You've gotten to the bottom, whatever that means. You realize that no matter what I say to that person, it's going to come out the same way. So you can either keep banging your head against the wall. You can play passive aggressive and say, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm going to use some kind of strategic warfare to try and prove my point, and that never gets anybody anywhere. Or I can what's the old saying? Go with the flow, right? Or go with paddle with the river, and then find out what it is that you lost in the marriage that made you get to this point where you're having problems. I would love to go back, but you can't, right? I mean, you can't unring the bell. I would love to go. Well, what I'm saying is I'm not going to go back and live with my ex-wife, but I would love to be a fly on the wall and have had somebody there saying, all you need to do is X, Y, and Z, and then you're going to get X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. You're going to get some cohesion out of this, and it's not bribery. It's not anything that's designed to finagle. You know what it is? It's honesty, and honesty is the thing that I think we're seeing more of now. And I'm coming clean. I mean, I'm the thing when I say honesty, I try to make excuses up in the old days where I was with certain things in my life. I drank a lot. I drank a lot of alcohol, and it was up until 6 months ago now. But I've quit on a number of different occasions. And this last time, I said, you know what? You're sluggish in this position. You're sluggish. So anybody who's at that position, who's saying that they know deep down that this is not a path that's working for them. Because there was a time I was drinking wine, and I'm saying I do love the taste of wine. I love a red. I like a Bordeaux. I like a Pinot Noir. I like a real rich, oaky, smoky wine. I like that full, robust flavor. And when I sit down and start drinking it, I can't stop. And that's part of the problem. Although you don't want to let a good bottle of wine go to waste. But you know what I'm saying? It's a point where you have to say, okay, now once you've made that decision, you have to not beat yourself up, and you have to try. So now is the point where you try. And so I tried, and I said, you know what? And then it becomes, and this is something that an older days therapist said to me. He says, when you get to the point where you can say, you've gone another day, can't you just say, well, why don't I just go one more day? Why don't you just go one more day? And then after a while, it becomes like riding a bike. And that which you used to have that was not only a trigger to not have it, now becomes, it becomes commonplace to not have it. And do I have desires to go out and have a glass of wine? I love the vodka, but I know now, man, it was good while it lasted. I smoked some pot in the days, and for anybody who still does, I don't have any objections to that. I have no objections to if you want to drink. What I do want to offer is that if you've finally gotten to the point where you say, this just isn't serving me, that you decide to, and that's falling to pieces. So falling to pieces. Well, you mind if I continue here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm rolling, right? What? Yeah, and I hope I'm not being overly excited. I probably have a little adrenaline going, but I feel that when you get to a certain point, and you have this is what happened to me. I was sitting in a room, and I said, you know what? I was distraught. I was desperate, and I was thinking, this is, where am I going to go from here? And it's not about going up or getting out of where you are. Well, you know what the answer to this is. The answer to this is you need to accept where you are. Because once you have accepted this aspect of who you are, yeah, I'm a jerk, but I'm not going to beat the living daylights out of myself because I feel that I've created this jerkdom, right? What I'm going to do is make a deal with that place and say, hey, listen, you know what? I don't want to really hang here much longer, but I can't, there's a part of me that's always going to be that person, and I can't just let that person disappear, because ego's a bear. You can't do it all in one shot, and I don't think it ever disappears. I think it's again, I think we come here to learn a lesson, let's say, and part of that personality that we are, if it carries on, is part of the scars that a shark takes with it through the waters as it's going on, and you say, boy, that's Jimmy. That's Jimmy the shark, the guy who got that gash from the big mako that came by, and that's part of that. But that shark knows it's there, but it's not pervasive in that person's life. I find that a lot of people have a tendency to look at the wound and lick the wound and continue to lick the wound instead of let the wound be. And I think that's part. So the woe is me is another aspect versus this, which is fallen to pieces. It's a song which was written. It's a song which was written in a couple years ago, I think, maybe 5, could have been. So all these songs are coming to fruition, and the difference. So I play these acoustic, but now I've got the full boat versions coming out of these, and within a month, I guarantee we'll have at least 5 or 6 songs to share the full boats and send some people to where they can actually listen to them and buy them and do all sorts of crazy stuff. But this song, again, is about that point where you finally accept the fact. When I was a young boy, I was forced to perform the deed that put me on the path of hypersexuality. Now demons run the show in the afterglow, worn and torn and melted down to the ground, falling to pieces, 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 half the world right now is mad and half the world's insane. Got to get back to our hearts and get out of our brains. Think we are so smart? Question still remains. Can we right the ship or go up in flames? Falling to pieces, 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 we're falling. Then there's a break, which goes into this really funky. And I have this rap part that goes in there, and then it comes back with this final bridge, which is, I'll do the rap someday for you live, but right now we won't do that. Think we are, we've been here before, Genghis Khan and friends. Another 1,000 years and we'll do it again. Falling to pieces, 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 we're falling. So that's the song.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It's a song that now that my son, who you know very well, Liam,
Mm-hmm.
great musician in his own right, and does the drumming in some of this stuff. He said to me, "Dad, you got this song, which is this real major chord, and you got this seemingly distraught section of somebody falling to pieces." I said, "I understand that." I said, "But the point of falling to pieces is for everybody to actually acknowledge that they're at that point where they're falling to pieces,
Mhm.
And there is the rap talks. I mean, the verse itself, which is got to get back to our hearts and get out of our brains, is the piece of the puzzle in the whole song that. And then we pose the question: think we are so smart? The question still remains: can we right the ship or go up in flames? So now you're at the point where, um, as a society right now, everybody's looking at, well, are we going to end up in WW Trace? And well, no, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And
Some
and
people
so
think that.
right.
Hmm.
Well, I happen to think that I can't predict the future, but based on some of the more recent activities that have been taking place, I see way too many things moving in a very positive direction. There have been leaders of other countries that have been maligned, and I think that anything that you watch on major TV is exactly the opposite. So if you've if I and this is what I began to say before we actually got on the air. I cannot believe over the past 2 days how many people I say I can't believe. I do believe it. I mean, and nothing's really surprises me anymore. But I can't believe how many people have waffled in a certain sense over something that I happened to say, and they knew what my stance was prior to that. They knew who I was interested in seeing, and I respect everybody. I mean, I respect
Hmm.
everybody. I don't agree with a lot of what's happened in the recent history. I see some real um, disparity and discrepancies and whatever other words you want to put on it. It just seems really wacky how things can get so far out of hand. But I understand why, and I understand that there's a whole slew of people that have some level of control that have been controlling the narrative, and it's not just the past 8 years. It's been going on for a long, long time.
Hmm.
But to us, it feels like a short period of time, only because we've been in it.
Paying attention.
Well, I think that's the
Yeah.
truth, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, isn't like the events which have happened more recently almost like a microcosm of we're awakening? And it's like, hey, 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 look, 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 and nobody's looking. And it's like something happens, and then now there's questions being raised as to why it happened, why nobody was looking. And the interesting part of that whole thing is how the narratives I I believe I've seen some narratives changing a little bit on the media.
Hmm.
And I mean, if that's the case, and I think to some extent that is, there's some that to me is one of the most exciting things that you could ever possibly have imagined, because if you look 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right, you were looking at things going, how is that happening? How is this
Yeah.
happening? And where's the autonomous this group of people that's just we don't see it that way.
Yeah.
And I won't bring up any terms, but I remember the terms. It's funny because I was speaking with uh, my son or somebody, and I was mentioning a few of the terms that were used back in the day. Right, baseless claims
Hmm.
was one of them. Right, baseless claims. You remember that? About something. I forget what it was. But those are the kinds of terms that were like, you're looking at it going, wait a minute. Wait a minute. But basis. In a newscast, in a news organization, you would assume that it's a it's discerning, right? And if news came in, news flash, we have news that allegedly something has happened. Not we have news that there are baseless claims. Baseless claims, how could they be baseless? That means somebody's already made the decision. That means it's
Hmm.
already gone through a court of law. So it was interesting over this period of the time that things have gone on, that I just look, and I've been in the very beginning I was very angry. But as I've grown in this whole process,
Hmm.
um, I think it really requires more than just reaching out. And I want people to keep watching you, and that's that totally because, but I think there's a lot of information that you put out that's awesome, right? But I think that people need to reach into the heart chakra,
Oh, yeah.
and they have to use their own mind as far as how they perceive.
Mhm.
And look, I mean, if things are changing with the media, that's great. But that whole system has been suspect for a long time. And I see memes about, I wish I could think of the one meme that I just saw the other day. And it's, it's almost like, well, it's a matter of fact. What are you going to do about it? It's like, no, 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 no. That's taking some level of an apathetic approach to something that needs to be handled. But we can't
Mhm.
go willy-nilly about it either. We have to have some level of, and I think the piece of the puzzle that is, again, one of the most valuable pieces, if I was a guru, right? If I was a guru, and I didn't come up with any of this stuff, but I've heard people say, um, stop worrying about what the other person's doing and do what you can do in order
Mhm.
to improve the because I believe again that the aura that we and this is again all about frequency. You walk into a room and you have you have the moves like Jagger, let's say, right? You're gonna
Mhm.
bring with you a level of attention. People are gonna look at you and they're gonna say, okay, what do I have to do? And depending on what comes out of that, the next person follows that path. And I find
Mhm.
that going out and I'm big on uh, service related businesses and giving good tips and trying to pass along. You know, obviously I want good service. I don't want to really have to tip badly for bad service, but the places that I go, I know the people, and so I try to make it a point. And I ask them at the end of the day, hey, pass it along because that's how it works. You don't have to go tip somebody the same, but if you pick up something off the floor for somebody or you do something, it seems so trite, doesn't it? But it really is that simple. It's as simple as a kind word, going down, talking to my father, hanging out. We'll go to dinner a little bit later, and we will converse about some things that happened to him in his life, and he will be ecstatic about the fact that he's got somebody to talk to at dinner. And I see the responses, and I'm uh, moved by the conversations, and I want more now. I want more because that's another thing that's lost is the relationships between the generations.
Yeah. And just with each other too, like the
Yes,
ability to be present has really suffered, and that was done on purpose. And now it's like people are starting to learn how to be present again with each other, like, and also to be more tolerant. Like, it's not important to be attached to how somebody else feels about something because that's how
right,
they feel. And you
right,
can feel however you want to feel. And we really need to figure out where we're at versus trying to fit ourselves into somebody else's idea of what we should be.
right. I think you're
So,
absolutely correct.
yeah.
Because if you worry about too many things about what other people are thinking, or even this, oh my God, but what happens in November if whichever side I want to win doesn't? Well, what if it does? What if that actually happens? Then the only thing you have is falling to pieces again. You're back to the place where the only thing that you can control, which is all we could ever do, is what we could control ourselves. And how much of that either side is actually going to affect you. Well, we see the prices of food and everything have gone crazy. Prices of
Oh, yeah.
gas. I remember prices of gas back not too long ago in like 2015 or 16 were down around $1.81 in Connecticut. And I remember this very, very distinctly. I have pictures of it. I'm more than happy to share them. Now the prices of gas are crazy, right? But the point I'm making is, even if my hopes of how it should go, right, don't happen exactly. And I got a little anxious when I thought about this. And then I said, but wait a minute. One thing that's not going to happen is your heart's not going to stop breathing, stop
Mhm.
beating. It's not, your lungs might, but your heart's not going to stop beating. And you're going to continue. Now, you can kill yourself over it, right? You could, or you can then just say, you know what, I got to get back to, because for a lot of this time, I'm sure that a lot of people, including myself, have been holding their breath. And then I thought, I have some songs that I have to finish. I can't be holding my breath any longer. I actually have to make stuff happen. And that's where I kind of moved on to getting back to my heart, right? And getting out of my brain, because my brain is huge. I got a lot of gray matter. A priest told me when I was in freshman class, of all the things he said, I just like to say that, Frank, you're talking to the whole class, and I'd like to say that Frank has the highest IQ in the classroom, meaning the whole graduating class of 81, but it was freshman year, and I felt like this small because I got no self-esteem. So no matter what you say about that, that's almost like you gave me fuel to go into the ground. Oh, why is that? Well, because as smart as I might be, I feel at the time I felt very foolish, and I felt like I wasn't capable of doing the things that I look across the table. We're talking about people that look too far outwardly, right? And they're looking across the table, and I looked at people and I said, oh, there's no way. I looked around the room and I said, oh my gosh, there are people in this room that are a heck of a lot smarter than me. But then it's not until more recently, and I bring it up over the years of my brother, my brother and sister have said things. We all have a pretty solid, intelligence quotient, but they despised a certain amount of this, and I didn't. I would have none of it if everybody could just get along, and that was something that I had to sacrifice. I'd say okay, but this is my time right now and I think that's what I think everybody that is here right now.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just brought up another part. So at the very beginning of Falling to Pieces, in the full blown version, there's a bass beat, doof, 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 bass drum, doof, doof, and I say right here, right now. And I was trying to figure out where right here, right now was coming from, because it came off the top of my head. Most of the stuff that, and we've talked about this a little bit, most of the stuff that I write, I turn the key on the divine door and out come these lyrics, and I have an idea, and they're almost all written in some form, and then there's some tweaks that I might make depending on the words and so forth. But what I get is this, and then they turn into words, and then the thing becomes. I have a couple tapes. Next time I'll share them of me just starting with. I think it was a song called Hurricane, and then it starts to take form. And now I forgot what I was going to say. What was I talking about?
No.
I forget.
Yeah.
Something about lyrics. It's
Yeah, the
crazy.
lyrics come.
The
I mean,
very beginning,
you're
of the
channeling.
song. The very
Yeah.
beginning of the song. Right here, right now, I kept trying to figure out where that was coming from. And then I realized through the subconscious that, oh my gosh, there was a song by Jesus Jones back in the 80s or 90s that was called Right Here, Right Now, watching the world wake up from history. Yeah, of all the songs, I go back and I watch the video, and it's about today, but he thought it was about then. And I started singing Right Here, Right Now, and it had nothing to do with him at the time. And I was like, oh, thank you for that. Thank you. Just came
Yeah.
right through. And now we're mixing a little something at the very beginning of the song, a little treat, and maybe a little Jesus Jones at the very beginning, little sample. But it's funny how things. I don't purport to be uh, um, clairvoyant. I've said it many times, and I joke about it. But I think a lot of things when we talk about manifestation have happened for me in a lot of
Mhm.
ways that I can't dispute it. From eagle sightings to hawk sightings and thousands. We're talking about thousands, and me constantly asking the question, "Can you just give me a sign?" And bam, here comes a sign. My mother, and the day after, a couple days after she died, and then three eagles are in the sky, and there's a whole story behind that. But this
Mhm.
was, these are the things that, and I said, "Mom, is that you?" And this beam of light came out of the sky, and it was like I was almost felt like stricken, like when they talk about the guards at the gate at the tombstone for Jesus
Mhm.
Christ, and it seems like that whole level of just humility, right? Oh my God, I almost couldn't breathe or talk or anything. It was just like, and my son was with me. He goes, yeah. He says, well, here's why. He goes, there's three eagles in the sky. This is after we saw two eagles and one eagle, and so this comes down to this. And Liam goes, yeah, as if his level, his generation, his ilk. It's like, yeah. So I'm like, what? It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I'm blessed to get all of the signs and all of this stuff. I don't like to solicit it because I think I can help people more through the music than and
Yeah.
these kinds of conversations than I can just coming out and having my. I'm going to have a podcast as well. I'm not going to compete
Oh,
with you.
cool.
I'm going to do
Awesome.
more of similar to what I'm talking about now. I have a friend of mine. Her name is Anne Marie, and then I have a few shows lined up. A woman who's a homesteader who has cows and pigs, and she does animal husbandry. And I'm still perplexed. I'm not perplexed. I'm amazed because she has been involved in Young Living Oils for many years, and she's taken on a little bit of a different role with them, and now she's doing a couple other things. But she's built this with the money that she's made. She's built this beautiful place a little north
Oh,
of
yeah.
where I am, and we're going to do an interview on her. I've got local like Rossi's Deli, which is anybody who knows who Rossi's Rotisseria Deli is. It's like the ultimate in Italian cuisine, like going to New York City and having the real deal. So
Wow.
so it's going to be more a point of interest and spirituality. And Maria and I talk. Monica's going to be on the show, and we'll
Good,
have.
good.
Yeah, so we'll have
Yeah.
her giving her. So it's going to be a combination, which is going to be great.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, um, I hope I haven't talked too long. Do you
No, you
think?
did good. And I think, for you guys listening, listen to some of the things that really light you up for your future that you're interested in. I think podcasts are really going to take off. I'll definitely share Frank's podcast once he gets it started. That kind of stuff. It's important because that's what we're all going to be doing is something that moves us,
Yeah,
whether
can I?
it's in the public or not.
Right. Can I say
Yeah.
one thing about that though? I
Yeah.
mean, look, we I'm not taking anything away from anybody that wants to make a buck, and we all have to make a buck, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I wanted to talk about this, and I think we still have a little bit of time. Um,
Okay.
the This has to do with AI, and it has to do with the podcasts of today. The podcasts of today, I think there's a lot of very positives about many podcasts, and then there's a lot of stuff going around that are AI pictures that people say are pictures of the sun and the way the sky looked today, and it's like you're going to be faced now with. I don't know if it'll last very long because I think people are automatically going to assume things aren't real. That's what I believe. That it's going to get to the
Well,
point where
yeah.
it's going to be like, oh, that's almost like and I'll bring up, let's say, the flat earthers who say that anything that has to do with the moon landing is fake. Now, I happen to believe that whoever got to the moon first, there could have maybe been some early on things that were not really right. But I got to say that there's probably some of this, some of it's true, some of it's not true. Point I'm getting at is whatever you believe, you kind of are going to have to discern because there's so many people talking on both sides out of both sides of their mouth. So it's like you've got four sides really taking place because it's really hard to tell is this the truth? But you said one thing, but you're kind of
Doing
you're kind
another.
of yeah, you're contradicting yourself. And then on the other side, this person's saying what they're saying and they're contradicting themselves. So it's really kind of fun. It's fun to watch. And that's something that when we talk about I think if you just take it for face value, I use a lot of AI when it comes to Mercury was a video that I created with a lot of AI pictures. I'm not saying I drew them. I'm not saying, but I think they created a certain mood in the video, right? I like the fact that I have that because I'm not going to go out and be able to spend $1,000 on every frame, right? To have somebody
Oh, yeah.
um, illustrate. Now, I love people who do artwork, and I think there are so many amazing artists in the world right now. The sidewalk chalk that goes on is crazy. The pen and ink on the human body is crazy. All of it, all of it's crazy. I still don't have a problem with people using AI, but I do have I have a laugh when I see somebody say, "Oh, this is real," and it's like, come on,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
you know. So that's something. And then I would urge people to kind of like you say, right? Use your not so much better judgment, but that part that comes from the heart, the part that frequency that says, you got two notes, right? You got these two notes right here. They're in tune, right? But you got these two notes and you're saying something's not right. So when you hear these two notes in your brain and you say, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. We're gullible in a lot of cases, trusting, right? We're
Hmm.
trusting people. I want to believe that's true, but there's been a lot of stuff that just somebody's talking about some things in some lake up in Canada, and they were drawn, but it was done by an artist, and people are saying it came from some ancient time, and it's like, oh, listen, okay, but I say, may the buyer beware, caveat emptor for the next, you know, I'll be back in about a month. You think? Can I come back
Yeah,
on?
whenever you're ready, just let me know. Yeah.
I think that'd probably be. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sweating. We our air our air conditioning is off right now, and it's probably about 95 degrees in the room. But I think I'd like to continue. I'd like to see how the next month goes with things, right? And then at the
Yeah.
same time, I'll have some music and some talk about the podcast to share, and we'll kind of just pick up where we left off because I enjoy these
Okay.
conversations with you.
Yes,
And the
it's a
people
lot of
out
fun.
there, whoever's watching, I have to say, um, I know that this is a tough road, but it can be easier just if you let go a little bit. Just let go a little bit, go with the flow, trust, and let it all happen. And I think you're golden. So I wish you well during that period of time. And
Yes.
maybe I'll be a guru by then. Who knows?
I don't know. I
Joy,
don't think any of us are gurus anymore. We're just like speaking our perception. But
right?
we
Of
have a
course,
lot of different parallels that are sandwiched together right now. And if you want to think about the parallels, think about there's 30 kids in a classroom and everybody has a different home life.
exactly.
So every single person has a different perception
And
and
they
just
should be allowed
allow it.
that. And
Yeah,
they should be
just
allowed
allow
that.
it.
The one
Mhm.
thing that I think that people need to, I mean, they don't need to do anything, but if I had a suggestion, I'd say let people be, and as soon as it becomes an issue where somebody is going to infringe upon the rights of another human being, that's where people have to take stock in the human element of maybe we should help this person get out of the predicament they're in. It's very tough because a lot of people. I think people are coming more together now than they ever did, though. You see a
Yeah,
lot
they
of
are.
things where people are getting people out of fires, doing some pretty amazing things to help others. That what was the big pervasive thing over the years? That New Yorkers you won't look you in the eye, and they just. When I went to the city, you know me. I look you in the eye. When I went to the city, I really never had that problem, which I thought was very interesting because when I talked to whoever it was, you get that initial level of resistance, but
Hmm.
persistence wears that resistance down, and all you got to do is be friendly, and things open up for you.
Yep,
That's it.
exactly. Awesome.
We can
Thank you
never seem
so
to say
much.
goodbye. Yeah,
Yes,
no
thank you so
question.
much, Frank. This
I
was a lot
appreciate
of
it.
fun.
Thank you,
And look
folks.
for the next one, you guys, because the music's going to be coming out. Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.